Good evening. The meeting will please come to order. Adequate notice of this meeting as required by the Open Public Meeting Act, and on January 19th, 2022, a copy of the notice specifying the date, time, and location was posted on a bulletin board outside of Borough Hall, given to the clerk administrator, emailed, faxed to the Courier News, and put on the borough website. If any member believes that this meeting is being held in violation of the Open Public Meeting Act, please state your views at this time. These proceedings are of a judicial nature. Only those items on the agenda will be discussed. Proper judicial decorum will be maintained. Okay, we got rid of that. Okay, next item, swearing in of our new members.
I have oaths of office, Mr. Chairman, but
Yes.
I am not aware that we have, unless there are unless there are members who are carrying over into new terms, I think we may have everybody.
We got a lot of old members.
I think we
I
discussed
got
this.
reappointed.
Yeah, Rich got reappointed.
Okay. I can start Rich.
Yeah.
Start Rich. They weren't paying attention.
Eric, I thought you were reappointed.
All right, Mr. O'Neill, if you don't mind, I'll swear you in again.
Swear it anyway.
Swear in you. All right. You probably know this very well by now. Please repeat after me.
Repeat after you.
All right. I, Richard O'Neill, do solemnly swear
I, Richard O'Neill, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
to support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey.
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
And I will bear and allegiance to the same.
and to the governments established in the United States and in this state,
And to the government established in the United States and in this state,
under the authority of the people,
under the authority of the people,
and that I will faithfully,
and I will faithfully,
impartially,
impartially,
and justly
and justly
perform the duties of the zoning board of adjustment member
perform the duties of the zoning board of adjustment member
according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my ability.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
What's that, 30 years, Rich?
Yeah.
We tried.
You can't?
Well, the legislature doesn't seem to want it. The league would like to,
Yeah.
I don't know about doing away with it, but they'd like to shorten it. But it hasn't been I'm on the drafting committee, and we can never seem to get anybody over there and shorten the oath a little bit. Because really, if you sign it, it should be sufficient, but there are still many people who would like to have the ceremony of, staying up and doing their thing, and they bring their families and everything else. So that, there's a big interest group that presses to keep things as they are. So what can I tell you? But appreciate Mr. O'Neill doing it very nicely. And I turn it back over to you, Mr. Chairman. I don't think we have any other new members for this year.
I thought we had a couple.
Or
renewals. So we got the band back together. Ready. Okay. Roll call, please.
Chairman Adair,
Here.
Mr. Richevich,
Yes, here.
Ms. Carpenter, here. Mr. Adamski,
Here.
Mr. McLaughlin,
Here.
Mr. O'Neill,
Here.
Mr. Alat,
Here.
Mr. Flores,
Here.
Mr. Alvarez.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum. Before we get started, are there any conflicts tonight?
I have conflict. I have a conflict, yes, with Frank McAlevy's.
Okay.
And I have a question about the applicant on 4th Street. Is this a continuation or is this a brand new hearing?
Brand new hearing.
Well, I think technically it's a continuation. I don't know if Marshall wants to chime in on it. I do believe it was a
It's a
continuation.
continuation and we had granted an extension, but I did renotice.
That's what my understanding was that you had granted an extension of
Okay,
time.
right.
Yeah, my question to you, Cliff, is that I did not hear the first presentation.
Oh, Morgan, I would say since it's been 6 months, maybe Dave could go over that briefly. Sort of the testimony, Dave?
I would ask that you re-summarize your testimony and do that.
I mean, it's, the board can hear it, refresh it.
Sure.
Right, refresh the recollection. I believe that certainly would be legally sufficient to do that.
Good, okay.
As long as it will give you, well, make sure that I'll ask when we go through that you have a comfort level after listening to Mr. Steyer's recapitulated testimony. Sure. If you're fine, then we move forward.
And it was just Dave, we didn't get to the planning testimony or anything else.
That's what I
Just
thought,
Dave,
yeah.
right?
Correct.
Okay, that's good.
Okay, since we have 3 members who are conflicted with the McAlevey application. Right. No, I got it right there.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next item, nomination and election of officers. We have a nomination for chair.
Art, I second.
Move in second. Any other nominations? Someone want to move that the nomination be closed?
So moved.
Move second, all in favor? All in favor of Art there being chairman? Roll call, please.
Chairman Adair,
Yes.
Mr. Richavitz,
Yes.
Ms. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mr. Vidomski,
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Alat.
Yes.
Thank you very much. This never gets old.
We.
We got old. Good Lord. I was in my 30s when I came on this board. Election of a vice chair.
Nominate Dan.
Second, Dan Hirschevitz.
Any other nominations? Move the nomination be closed?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all in favor of closing?
Aye.
Roll call for Dan for chairman, vice chair?
Chairman Adair,
Yes.
Mr. Richavitz,
Abstain.
Ms. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mr. Vidomski,
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Alat.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations, Dan. Nomination for secretary, for board secretary?
Can we nominate an interim? How do you do
Yes,
that?
we do. We nominated until she's,
Okay. I'll move for Jasmine.
I second it.
second for John. Any other? Move the nomination be closed?
So moved. Second.
All in favor of closing nominations?
Aye.
For Jasmine, someone want, it's already been moved. Roll call, please.
Chairman Adair,
Yes.
Mr. Richavitz,
Yes.
Ms. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mr. Vidomski,
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Alat.
Yes.
Congratulations.
How many zeros would we have to put on the check to get you to stay?
I'll be doing that.
We could do.
All right, I'm working on it.
Someone like to move for general counsel?
I'll move Cliff.
Second.
Second. Any other nominations? Someone move that the nomination be closed?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Call for a roll call for Cliff Gibbons?
Chairman Adair,
Yes.
Mr. Richavitz,
Yes.
Ms. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mr. Vidomski,
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Alat.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. Appreciate the vote of confidence
We
very much.
appreciate you being here.
Pleasure and an honor.
Just add that oath.
Is that it?
I didn't.
Planner, add that oath.
Oh, plan.
I'll keep working on it.
Do we have any nominees for planner slash engineer slash everything?
Let me think about this.
You the man.
Yeah, Yeah, I nominate Mike.
Okay.
Second that.
It's been moved and second for Michael Cole. Any other nominations? No, okay. Move to close the nominations? Move second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Roll call for Michael Cole.
Chairman Adair,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Ms. Karpinez,
Yes.
Mr. Vidinsky, Mr. McLaughlin,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yeah, let me think about this. Yes.
Mr. Alat.
Yes.
Okay, we have a
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
We have a resolution to approve the minutes for December 22nd, the regular minutes and the executive session.
I'll move it.
Move second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolution for the recognition of the newspaper. Curry News. Moved.
Second.
Second. This involves money, so roll call, please.
Chairman Adair,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Ms. Karpinez,
Yes.
Mr. Vidinsky,
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Alat,
Yes.
A resolution delineating our meeting dates for the balance of the year in January 2024.
I'll move it.
Move.
Second.
Move second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Chairman Adair,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Ms. Karpinez,
Yes.
Mr. Vidinsky,
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Alat,
Yes.
Okay, two resolutions for land use, 346 Union Avenue. Would someone like to move that?
I'll move that.
Move.
I'd like to discuss part of that.
Okay.
I'll second it for discussion.
Move, second. Rich?
Just on page 9 of the resolution, it says at the bottom of the resolution, prohibiting grills, open fires, and cooking facilities from location or operation at the townhouse units and locations for the storage of bicycles. I don't think we said they couldn't have a barbecue grill, we just said they shouldn't put it on the deck.
You think you're right?
And that was because they didn't have a 10-foot deck, they couldn't get far enough away from the exterior wall. But I don't think we should forbid them on the property, but just, I think it was the deck that was the issue.
Shall we make it restricting rather than prohibiting? Would you prefer that, or?
Yeah, I don't think that falls under the code, right, since it's fee simple.
Yeah, the deck, we probably should have one, but.
Yeah, just so it's there, whether they do it or not, it's no different.
That's fine. I tend to err on the side of caution for the board's
Yeah.
favor, so, no, we just make it restricting. And I'll send a new page.
Roll call on the amended resolution?
Chairman Adair,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
I'm ineligible for that.
Ms. Karpinez,
Yes.
Mr. Vidinsky,
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Alat,
Yes.
Okay, carried. Next resolution for approval on 4 Rory Drive.
Oh,
Move,
Second.
second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Chairman Adair,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Ineligible.
Ms. Karpinez,
Yes.
Mr. Vidinsky,
yes.
Mr. McLaughlin,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Alat,
Yes.
Okay, next is land use applications. As we,
What about the trail?
Well, the applicant contacted me, the applicant who had apparently had been very anxious to get this done tonight, got my resolution, which, as you can see, is pretty intensive because it was a pretty intense application. They asked if I could ask the board to, if you will, pull it from the agenda for tonight so they can have an opportunity to review it. He had some concerns about some of the conditions that the board had agreed to, the board had asked him to comply with, and I guess, they want to discuss it. So I think it might be best if, we carry it. I will tell you that I felt that the resolution did faithfully depict what happened that night, but I mean, there may be some, for all I know, they may want to review the transcript, though I think the transcript speaks very clearly to some of the condition, has to do with things like the granite and the curves and stuff like this that frankly, the board had agreed, the board had agreed to and as the applicant had, so we'll just have to see, but it's not unusual for this to happen. We can certainly carry it to the next meeting.
I've got a question for it. I was at a state on business when this hearing was held. Can I review the transcript and become eligible to vote on it, or should I just stay?
Transcript or you two?
Whatever.
I believe you could review the transcript. The reality is you didn't vote though, and that's the point. Voting on it, you really can't vote on the resolution because you didn't vote on the application. I mean, certainly you can, my suggestion would be to, if you have concerns with the form and content, let me know, but just procedurally, I don't think this is gonna be a problematic situation, but just to be careful of the procedural issues, I think we should probably hold back on this.
Okay.
Okay. So we're going to hold that to the next one?
Yes.
Okay, because of 1/3 of our board has to recuse itself from the McAlevey application, rather than having them leave and come back, we're gonna do the park first. Okay, Frank?
Good evening, I'm Marcia Zaleski, I'm the attorney for the applicant development. As we had discussed earlier, we had commenced our hearing and then realized there was an issue with regard to some of the sets of architectural plans. Mr. Stiers had opened his testimony and we were through, I believe we were through the bulk of the testimony, but we will have Mr. Stiers summarize that testimony from the last hearing. He was already sworn in, so.
Yeah, you remain under oath, yeah. As we had said, we could if you could recapitulate it, that would be helpful.
So the applicant is, subject property is on 15 4th Street. It is in the R2 residential zone, single family zone. It's adjacent to the I2 zone, and there are industrial properties both to the south and to the east of the subject property. What we are proposing is a two-family dwelling, and part of the proposal is to provide a garage under the proposed building, and then the two apartments above, and that's due to the flood elevations. The property, basically about halfway across the southern portion of the property does have some flooding issues based on a 100-year design storm. So we've designed it in accordance with the NJDEP regulations, and part of the where we stopped last time was the planning testimony relative, or setting up the planning testimony relative to the floodplain. I know Art had some questions about it, and I thought it over, and again, we are complying, or will comply with the DEP regulations. And what I can say to the board is this is basically a design similar to down the shore. After Sandy came through, they came back and they raised all the buildings and structures 2 feet above the floodplain. This particular design is actually 6 feet above the floodplain for the finished floor. And Barrier Island, when you get out of the building, you really have nowhere to go. this subject property, you can go north to higher ground. So it does, you know, it's not as significant as the barrier islands or the shore properties and how they are designed. With respect to Mike Cole's memorandum, just to kind of review, there's some variances that John Chadwick will go through in his planning testimony. On
Dave, are you gonna talk about raising the compressors and all the mechanical for the film? Is that you or the?
Yeah, we're gonna have, we'll have everything above the flood elevation. That's not a problem. With respect to Cole's comments, we talked about the garage door last time. I think Dan, basically we have adequate height for 6'9" humans. We thought that was okay. All the other items under parking and circulation, we would agree to. Under landscaping, we would agree to install the landscaping, screening, and buffering. We discussed that last time. Lighting, we would agree to. Again, just to reiterate, the floodplain, the garage elevation is at 47.5. 100-year flood elevation is 47, and the design flood elevation is 50, and the finished floor is 56.5. So we talked about the DEP's looking at raising the flood elevation 2 feet. With that said, the design flood elevation would go to 52, and we would still be 4.5 feet higher than that design elevation. On page 6, we don't think there's any proposed changes based on the new regulations coming through because of the height of the proposed finished floor. We've already taken it into account. Item 4, we would agree to securing the necessary DEP permits. And item 5, we would sign the garage space below the two apartments with a warning about the flooding issue. And then under stormwater comments, we would agree to everything, and we did discuss item 2. The swale, the proposed swale is at 1.4%, where 2% is required by ordinance, and we would ask for a waiver just because of the existing slope from north to south on the subject property. Just can't make 2% work, it's too flat. Item F, sanitary, we would agree to those 2 issues with the connection fees and the house connection detail, we will add that. And then lastly, planning comments, we have John Chadwick as the planner for the application.
How about Dave from the general comments?
Are
Are you gonna handle the ones on the attic, or is that gonna be the applicant? I'm looking at, well, the elements are gonna be handled by the architect. Is the architect here?
No, he's not.
Okay, so is the applicant gonna handle that?
You can have the applicant.
Okay. Okay, so 1 and 2 are gonna be handled by the applicant. And then I have the story question, Dave, on page 3. Half story versus, is it a 2.5 or a 3-story structure?
I have it labeled as a 2.5, but I would agree that it's a 3-story.
Okay. HVAC, the applicant's gonna take care of, you can ask, give some testimonies, so how's on that, number 4?
Yes.
625 is just a comment, demolition committee. 6 will be seeing you, I guess the applicant will do that. I'm on page 11 of 14 on the general comments. So we're gonna do underground service to the house, all the utilities are gonna be underground? That's item H7.
Yeah, it's subject to PSE&G. Yeah, when you
Yeah.
drop hole.
Yeah. Okay. I think Dave, you just mentioned that all the outlets and everything in the garage will be raised above the flood hazard elevation.
Yes.
So for number 4, so anything else? Cool.
What's that?
All right.
We'll get to you. We'll just go through Dave first, right? Yeah. And then the story is on number 9 is a 3-story structure. I think it is.
Yes.
So that's. I had a question on the stockade fence. Is it your fence or the applicant, the neighbors to the east? There's a stockade fence there. Is that the applicant going to handle that question? Okay.
I think it turns the corner, right?
Yeah, it goes back to the bin block. It goes along the, I think it's commercial property.
I think it's the subject property. Oh, you're talking about, yeah.
To the east, to the east.
I'm thinking about the west side. Yeah.
And then on item 15, Dave, are you gonna address this about putting families in the flood hazard zone? On 15, basically, you had brought up the shore, the communities on the shore. Question I'm asking in 15 is, if there is a medical emergency or fire during one of these events, is this?
Well, to the extent it's already zoned single family, it would be the same issue as any house on in that zone. Other than the fact that fortunately we're designing it such that above the floodplain.
Yeah, I guess you get to ask the question because you're coming for a 2-family, not a single family, so.
I mean, that's my test. I mean,
Okay.
it's the same as what happens for a single family.
You can't change the water. That's just the nature of the neighborhood.
Yep. And I think fortunately, you're on the outer perimeter, so you don't have a lot of velocity to deal with. And, you're talking about, a foot and a half of, you're telling me no?
Well, like 3 or 4 feet.
Well, I mean, yeah.
I had 87 half-tons and 1-ton headstones knocked over from Ida, and had 55 inches of water in my office. I think the velocity was a lot. In fact, Irene, before Sandy, some youngsters decided to go kayaking, and the police, they had to get them. They got on the bullhorns, and when they finally recovered those young men, they had everything they could do to stop from Rodney King, those young men. Yeah, the velocity gets there. We have lost some stones. You did too.
Water's an issue we can't change.
I know.
You're building to accommodate it, and if anybody moves in there, you should tell them.
Yeah.
Really plain and simple, but, I've been down there in total darkness, and so I thought it was an iceberg going by, it turned out to be a recycling dumpster. I mean, all kinds of stuff goes on down there.
Right.
You better believe it.
Yeah.
As long as people understand where to live and live.
And the borough has the warning system in place.
That's why we lost all our trucks.
Doesn't always work, right?
That's one for O'Neill.
Hey, Dave, how high above the 100-year floodplain was Ida?
I don't know in this particular area. I know over by Mountain Avenue, I don't know if that bridge fogged up or whatever, but Reuben and the apartments, they were, I think, at least 3 feet higher. But I think that bridge must have clogged down because I don't think it's consistent through Somerville, but I'm not positive.
Well, we've had cars go by down there. I mean,
Yeah.
Things just happen, that's the nature of it.
So if the design level is about 3 feet or so above the garage slab, you could easily see another 3 or 4 feet above that. So we're approaching the first floor. If Ida happens again or something like that.
When Ida happens.
way I've got it figured, they call them 100-year storms, I've seen nothing, I'd be 500 years old. I mean, it happens, but, you know.
It's happening more frequently.
Yeah, it's.
Yeah, Dan, just as the details, the 100 years, 47 and a half, and then the design storm is 50, and the finished floor is 56 and a half. So, I mean, there's some play in there, but like you said, you don't know what's going on.
Yeah, they're behind,
Yeah.
obviously.
That's why all my tenants are subterranean. I think we beat that one to death. But we've all experienced it. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay, Mr. Steyer. Okay. Rich, you caught up to date yet?
I am.
On Morgan, I'm sorry. Who's next?
Any other questions for Mr. Steyer?
Anybody from the board have any questions of Mr. Steyer's testimony?
I don't.
Anybody from the audience have any questions of his testimony given by Mr. Steyer's?
Thanks.
All right, I'll bring up Mr. Patel before we bring up Mr. Chadwick to do the planning.
Dave, you're gonna stay a little, you're gonna stick around a little, or you?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Patel, can you spell your first and last name for the record, please?
First name's Hag, S-A-H-A-J, last name Patel, P-A-T-E-L.
And are you a member of the applicant Park Development Group?
I am.
Thank you. Ms. Swain.
So, would you please stand and raise your right hand? You solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, so help you God.
Yes, I do.
Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
Hag Patel, P-A-T-E-L.
Thank you very much. Counsel, your witness.
Mr. Steyer's had addressed most of the comments, but there are a couple of comments under the general comments on page 11. If you wanted to address. You have a copy of the memo?
Yeah.
Yes, Sarge, it might be helpful just to tell the board the circulation, what's going on. Is the facade vinyl clad, is it hardy?
Okay.
You know, what windows?
That's the first comment, so
Okay,
that's where we're
so-
going.
It's a vinyl ply gem windows throughout. In the front of the home, we'll have some casement windows, and throughout the side, we'll have some double hung windows. The siding will either be gray or blue, with a mixture of either gray or white AZAC in the front.
Light gray or dark gray?
Excuse me?
Light gray or dark gray?
Light gray. I actually have two renderings.
There's been color photos.
I could pass them around. I have a couple of sets of these. I could pass them around so everyone can take a look at them. Of what the look that we're kind of going for. And
Were these in your materials?
Yes, they were part of the application package.
I have a couple more. Yeah. Timbertech roofing. In the rear, we will have a deck for the second mean of egress, which will be a mixture of pressure treated wood and Trex. The attic will not be used for living space, it will be for storage. The HVAC condensers will be mounted on the second story. The finished color we talked about
The HVAC compressors are gonna be where?
mounted to the second floor.
On the wall.
On they have these clamps that you can attach to the building that put the condenser on top, yeah.
On the wall.
Yeah, on the actual.
Exterior wall.
On the exterior wall.
I had some comments about the CMU, you're gonna use pour concrete, masonry walls for the basement, get up in the air of the house?
Yeah, we're gonna use CMU blocks to get up in the air, and in the front we'll do brick, the sides will have it exposed.
Yeah, I had some questions about that finish. Are you proposing any finish on that CMU? Is this in the
No.
front?
On
On the sides?
I wasn't called, but we could, need to be.
I'm
We're
just
bringing
saying,
siding lower, so there's only a couple, little bit
I
of.
mean, you have 9 feet, right? The CMU's gonna be about 9 feet in the air.
Right,
I'm saying it's big, it's because it's not 2 feet or 3 feet. There's a lot of element showing, so
so we bring the siding lower,
either I would say bring the siding level or brick face it or do something to dress it up. That's my opinion, but.
I agree with you, we could bring the siding lower, so only 4 feet, 3 to 4 feet from the bottom, so it looks like a,
Feels like it's finished.
right.
Anybody from the board have any questions of Mr. Patel?
Oh, he did, thanks, Ed.
Yeah,
The stockade fence, is that your fence or the neighbor's?
I don't believe it's our fence.
How's it oriented? Good side in or out?
That's the one on the east side is the, industrial.
It wasn't on the survey when we did the survey.
I just don't recall it. There's a fence there that's in disrepair. It's obviously close to the property line.
We'll go back and, if the fence is ours,
You want to fix it.
yeah. If it does come out to be ours, we can fix it.
I do have a question. How do I put this? Why do you think it's a good idea to build a two-family house in Somerville in a floodplain, when a two-family house, there is no provision in the zoning ordinance for a two-family house? But more importantly, why do you think it's a good idea to build a house in the floodplain?
Well, we are raising the elevation high, so if there were a flood, the house wouldn't get destroyed like the other homes on South Ray. The reason I'm proposing a two-family is I don't believe a single family would do well there because of the neighborhood. It's all industrial, and that's the last vacant residential lot in town. Everything after that is industrial.
Have you ever been to Staten Island?
I haven't, yet.
I don't have any other questions.
So Haj, I had a question about the 3-bedroom unit, 1,400 square feet or so, if my calcs were right. And I had a comment on 13, you know, any thoughts about making the 2-bedroom units to get more of a living space in them?
Right now,
It's item, comment 13 on page 12.
we can increase the,
I mean, it's just tight, 3 bedrooms. You don't have a lot of living space. If you look at the flow and circulation.
we have a decent sized kitchen, open kitchen, design area, inside room.
Just no powder.
We have the powder room. No, we do, we don't have a powder room, no, we don't.
No.
We have a
Just
powder
throwing
room.
it out. That
We do have a decent sized kitchen, dining room, living room area. Come in, there's open 10 by 10 kitchen.
I just asked the question, so that's all.
I got a question.
Yeah,
Good.
what's that, Rich?
Full bathrooms. Those 2 full bathrooms.
I know.
You say?
The garage walls, are they blowout walls?
Is it?
The garage downstairs, are they blowout walls or are they structural? Garage walls?
Yeah, flood vents on. They,
Yeah.
Yeah, what?
It's not floodplains. They have to by DEP reg.
I know that, but they're gonna hold, walls aren't going anywhere.
no.
Right.
That's an engineering question, and that has to be resolved by the building official.
It's not what they require in the whole plan. Alright. We'll comply to what they requires. The ground floor to be.
Right. No, I think you've covered, you have, the planning
It's on the plan.
comments that I'm sure John will take care of.
Yes, that's right.
Anybody else on the board have any questions of the comment of
Yeah.
the?
I just did want to say, I agree somewhat with Mike's assessment that the bedrooms are very small. These are the size of my bedrooms, and you can put a bed, I mean, it's tight.
Right.
To put furnishings in there. If you're gonna put, I have a queen size bed that there was only one wall in the two bedrooms that bed sit on because of the way the closets and the windows were. And I know you don't have that problem here, but 12 by 11 or 12 by 12 is really small if you want to put a chest of drawers or something else in there. Just saying. It's really small. I think it's great that you have a
We can
walk-in
make the
closet.
bedroom, we can make the bedrooms larger if need be, remove the one bedroom and add the pad room, what was talking about, to make the bedrooms bigger.
I'm just saying, you know, having that kind of space in my house, and I'm the only person there. They're small. My only comment.
Thank you.
Anybody from the audience have any questions of the testimony by Mr. Patel?
Okay, all right, thank you. We'll bring up Mr. Chavez.
I know, I recall Fern. That was a different matter.
Yeah.
Anyway, John, good evening, please raise your right hand. You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
My name is John Chadwick, CHADWICK, and I'm a licensed professional planner in the state of New Jersey.
You appeared
It
before us.
has been a while.
Okay, ready? Let's go.
And I've been accepted by the board.
Yes, you have.
And my license is good. I've been here for the hearing. I was here at the first hearing last year. And Mr. Cole has got a list of planning questions. That lists the variances, and he also lists planning issues. You have a variance for a two-family and a single-family house. I have some areas. Yes, I was figured to do that. This is just for everybody's recollection. This is what's really just passing. You're all set. And while the aerials are making their way around, this is just a Google, the outline of the property and where it sits on the street. And you've got what plans referred to as edge or transition lots. You have industrial on the two sides across the street. And behind us, we have a single and two-family homes. Separated, you can see the vegetation that is to the east side, west side of the property, and the depth of the lot. There is a separation of this structure from the adjoining residential side of the property, and we have a design that I think makes it compatible with the adjoining industrial use where the parking lot is on our side, not the building. So it's that transition from one type of a zone to another. It's not like going from 10,000 square foot single family lots to 20,000, we're going from a directly different type of zone and use, industrial, to a single family home. When you have that situation, you're always dealing with, you know, how do we transition through this? You heard the testimony of Mr. Stires and how they're gonna address the flooding issue. Basically, the rules are set by DEP. You have the questions, are we going above those rules? My interpretation was, from Dave's comments, that we are. All the equipment is gonna be above any floodway. So in terms of using the property for residential purposes, we meet the technical standards. Then do we meet the developed character of the neighborhood? Developed character of the neighborhood is some big homes, some of them are one family, some of them are two family, and then we've got the industrial buildings. But there's really no neighborhood character to this lot. We're at the point where they come together, and how do you deal with that? You have a description, pictures of what the buildings are gonna look like, what the materials are going to be on them, how you're going to deal when you have the emergency alert systems in place from past experience. So you have a lot of the infrastructure that supports this as a residential property. It's flat, it's readily developable, it's got utilities, it has all those things that make it a developable property. The putting this structure there is, as I think Dave commented, whether it's a single family residing on the property or two apartment households, they both face the same issues if you have another item. The emergency alert system should be in place. The back of the property is on the fringe, is upland when you look at the floodplain boundaries that are on the plans. So in all those cases, I think you have a safe environment for people to live in. The next question is, in terms of the other variants we have besides the one family versus two family, is the FAR. You've heard this a number of times. Can the property accommodate the proposal? And the way you measure that is, are we front yards, side yards, both standards, are we over those standards? And the answer is no, but for coverage. And coverage really goes to make the living units large enough so that they're suited for a young family, elderly couple, whatever. Basically, we're talking about three family units, 3-bedroom units. We're not talking about large 4 to 5 unit apartments. The other variance is the height variance. It's inches. From my standpoint, it's de minimis. The design of the building is such that properties to the west are 2-story with a relatively steep hip to the roof. The properties opposite the north and to the east are industrial buildings and really don't relate to the issue whatsoever. So we're not dominating any of the properties that are joining us, which is the fundamental issues to deal with height. All those other variances are negligible. We meet the parking standard. We will meet all the side yard, front yard setback standards. So I think we can say that it is reasonably accommodated and meets the test for a FAR, or floor area ratio variance. It comes down to what is the negative issues associated with this. The first meeting, you discussed flood issues, and this meeting, you discussed flood issues. And that's like the 300-pound gorilla in the basement. But do we have a way of gauging that? And yes, we do. We have rules and regulations in terms of what you have to do to make these buildings safe. You've had testimony from Mr. Stires that it will be safe and it will exceed those standards. You've also had commitments by both the applicant and statements of the engineer in response to Mr. Cole's questions as to how will you do this and how will you do that. You had positive response and or agreement. And those would be conditions that we would set forth. And that really relates to are there really negative impacts? Yes, they are. Have we addressed them? I believe we have. And have we addressed them to the point of, the term is ameliorate. I really don't know what that means. But it really goes to have we addressed them. And my opinion, we have. We've gone back, we've studied the elevations, we've looked at all the utilities, how can we deal with that? And we've looked at the improvements on the site. I had questions from either Mr. Cole or board members, and we've agreed to them. So when you boil it all down, you're gonna make a decision, does the positive outweigh the negative? We got a vacant property that's been used for various purposes, but primarily equipment storage in most recent time. This is a building that would house 2 families. It's residential in a residential zone. And it's been designed to address the one fundamental environmental issue being flood elevation. So I think we've met our burden in terms of providing for a suitable location for this kind of structure designed to meet the issues that are known and definitely improve the appearance of this lot and as it relates to this disjunctive neighborhood, as I've described it, between an industrial and residential feeding of this lot. I think it deserves your board approval.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask?
Certainly.
I have questions, Mr. Chadwick, with regard to the issue of site suitability, because it does appear that, needless to say, this property is burdened by its location in the floodplain, and, you know, the relative troubles that are raised by that. Why don't those conditions detract from the issue of site suitability, which appears to be your testimony?
The development is designed to meet the criteria to address site suitability. If you take that argument and lay it out over the borough of Somerville at large, you wouldn't have the borough of Somerville because of the extent of floodplain within the community.
Well, we don't use a general rule, though. We use, you know, each property is considered on its own merits.
And
what
that's
I'm really
what I said,
referring-
we've designed this building to meet the specific criteria of this site. We've made it a site that is suited for this construction.
You believe you've sufficiently taken into account the flooding issues in terms of determining that this is a suitable site?
Absolutely. You heard the testimony. of
I've
Mr.
heard your
Stiles.
testimony, but you know, I'm questioning you on it, quite frankly.
And Mr. Stiers is the person who has given the testimony to this board, assuring that it will be safe and will conform to what are the existing and expected rules of DEP. I rely on that testimony.
I understand that's the position you're in, and that's, I respect that, but I'm just saying it would seem to me I'm especially concerned about the comments made by our planner and engineer in connection with, well, particularly number 15 on page, was it H 15? In terms of, we clearly have flooding concerns here. I understand what Mr. Stiers has testified to, and I understand what you've testified to. But I mean, it would remain your testimony. I guess I'm struggling with I am not a planner, so I'm not gonna put myself in that position, but it would seem to me that you're kind of testifying against yourself, because you have a property that has certain, as I said, challenges, if you will, limitations. And yet we're saying it is nevertheless particularly suitable. And you say you created circumstances by which it would become suitable?
Yeah, it addresses all the issues that come with this property, and in terms of suitability, meets that test. Suitability is a test of, is it the property available, developable, almost the old COLA standard? And this conforms to that.
Well, the board has to consider, because this is a D1, you understand the strict standards that exist, and that there has to be, the board has a difficult standard to hold the property to. So I'm asking you to address as many of those issues as you can, because at the end of the day, they can touch base on all those issues that you think are relevant, because it's a tough decision. And you know this, you've been doing this as long as anyone in the whole business. You understand how difficult D1 is. So I'm encouraging you, I suppose, to be as thorough as you can. Because I understand you're saying, of course, based upon the gravity of your expertise and that of Mr. Stiers, testimony from a credible witness, I just believe this is something where you want to try to cover it as much as you can. I think you know what I'm getting at.
Well, the opening statements were to address where this property is, what its adjoiners are, so you have a setting to make an evaluation as to whether or not this property can be developed as a residential use. And that then goes to the major issue that we discussed at the first hearing, which was flooding. And the testimony, as I said in response to Cliff's comments, are that I rely on Mr. Stiers' testimony as to being a safe proposal in terms of future inhabitants, future occupants. And when you go down through the standards that were set under the DC, you've heard these 1,000 times, same kind of person. Does it provide for a logical use, appropriate use of the location? Yes. Zone for residential development, that's what we're proposing. Does it provide for sufficient light and air? Absolutely, because we meet all your standards. Does it provide for an attractive building in that location? You saw the building, in my opinion, it is an attractive building, given its neighborhood and the complexity of differing uses and styles of buildings that surround it. Is it a property where there's a marriage between private and public efforts? Yes. This will be a new resource to the community in terms of rental housing, and it provides for, my opinion, a good location in terms of that facility. And then you come back to measuring what are the impacts, how will we address them. I think we've done that in terms of both identifying the principal negative issues and how it will be addressed. terms of the site visibility, you saw the pictures of the building. I believe it's an attractive building, the materials that are gonna be used were demonstrated by the applicant himself. So I think we've met all the criteria under the Medici standard. We are, in terms of your master plan, the one is pretty old, but beside that, it doesn't make any comments to this area in terms of change or revision of its zoning plan. So in my judgment, there is no significant departure from what your zoning plan is, because our basic plan is for a residential dwelling in a residential zone.
Are you aware of the truck traffic on that street? On that street?
I've seen the commercial traffic. I go through this area frequently, I guess it's best to say. Have I ever gone out there and counted trucks? No. But the thing is, it's zoned this way. Whether you put the single family house or a two family house, you're talking about such an insignificant difference from a planning standpoint. The real issue, and I think you guys hit it on the head when you first started. How do you get out of here? How do you make this work? And Dave said I went back, checked all the numbers, went to DEP, talked to Mr. Cole, they raised it some more, and the back of the property really isn't even in the floodplain. It's out of, remember, this lot's pretty deep. So it's, does it get flooded? I can't tell you that.
I can. I can. But you work across the street, and my board secretary lives behind this property. Her house was in a lake. Her house was surrounded.
When did the high grounds come about? Next street up?
It was tighter.
Oh, yeah. But the thing you have, the borough, a lot of towns don't have, is the emergency storm system. I mean, Manville still doesn't have it.
I mean, John, my concern on this is, I agree, it's zone residential, no disagreement. My concern is, and we've done this on the redevelopment zones, we're trying to get people out of harm's way. Not, the elevation's great, but from a public safety point of view, the rescue people have to move these people out if there's a problem. What the borough's trying to do is get the burden off the public rescue and putting them in harm's way.
Purposes
You could be 10 feet above the flood hazard elevation. If they have a heart attack or a medical emergency, you're putting the public safety of the emergency responders in harm's way. And that is something that we're trying to move from.
I don't think that you are impacting those services. First of all, you gotta put this in context with magnitude. How many properties exist in the borough that are in the floodplain similar to this?
Yeah, but why add another one? The point is, why add another one?
Well,
That's what it all comes down to.
you don't have a lot of choice with this piece of property. It's not gonna be used as an industrial property. It's too small.
No.
Too narrow. It's gonna be used for residential, or it's gonna sit there and be a detriment to the homes that are adjoining it, because it's gonna be heavy equipment, storage yard, something like that, that is not conducive to that neighborhood.
John, you had indicated that this was compatible with the master plan. You said the master plan was rather old now. My understanding, I just had an opportunity to look on pretty closely with respect to the application we put, with a resolution we put off tonight. Our most recent version of the master plan is 2019. You find that this is.
Are you using the redevelopment plan, or are you using the master?
Master plan, because that's, under D1, that would be, under D1, that would be the standard.
Okay.
I mean, do you believe this is current, do you believe this is consistent with the present master plan? Because it would seem to me, based on my reading, could be wrong, but that we have changed how we treat that property a little bit. My planner, our planner has concurred with me on that, so I'm a little confused. I'm not trying to catch you, I'm just saying, you know.
There's more emphasis in the master plan to abate these conditions and not cause these issues.
In terms of the overall conditions, I agree with you, the current, but the global in terms of objectives.
Yes.
And is it focused on this property? No, it's focused on the borough. And, you know, the question is, if you reject this application, the alternatives to this are a single-family house, which you've heard the applicant say he does not believe that is a sound use of this property. And the reasons he doesn't, because of what it is. It's the piece between opposing uses. And you're trying to find something that will fit in there, provide a sound resource to the borough, and that's a two-family residential rental property. That's what it is.
John,
From a planning standpoint, I'm saying this. I'm not talking about real estate, I'm not talking about property.
I think we're beating this to death. I mean, we've asked
Yeah.
your question, you've already answered. I don't think your testimony is gonna change, but I just think we're beating it to death. Let's stop.
Anybody from the audience?
One more
Yes,
question.
go ahead.
I mean, I'm looking at the satellite footage, I see all the impermeable surface, right? You're asking to exceed looking for a variance for the FAR.
Yes.
To add more impermeable surface. Is that won't that detriment be a detriment to the public good by adding more impermeable surface that exceeds FAR?
Whatever you build here, the FAR is not the impervious surface. The FAR is floor. The impervious surface is just a negligible increase. But whatever you put here, you're gonna have some pavement and a footprint of the building. Or you're gonna have a big parking lot with a bunch of construction equipment on there, which has been historically what is there.
So you're arguing that the variance to exceed the FAR is not in the public effort?
Correct. And the FAR that's tested for the FAR is whether it can be reasonably accommodated on the site. It's not a test in terms of impact to the public good.
We had a question, Madam in the back, I know you had a question, let me, please.
Yeah, I'm kind of, this is my first time in meeting, my name is Tyler Mays. So this is going to be a development for
Ma'am,
We can't hear you.
Could you come on up forward?
John, I think
Yes.
we're done with your.
This is going to be a development.
No, it's just a question as to his testimony, so.
I don't know if she's asking me or asking
Yes.
you.
This is a question for Mr. Chadwick, right?
Yes.
Okay. Would you state your name?
Yes, my name is Tyler Mays,
Would you please help?
Z-A-I-D-A. My
Okay.
last name is Mays.
Okay.
Yes.
Address?
I work, First Baptist Church in Somerville.
Reverend Fleming's Church. Yep, okay.
I just have a question. Is this going to be units for rental? Rental units, a development? And it's in a flood zone, isn't it?
That's the proposal, yes.
Yes. So, how does anybody feel about someone living in a unit that it might be flooded one day, 10 years from now? Would I want my grandson, my daughter, my family to be in one of these units in the future? How would I feel? How will you feel? That's all.
Okay.
I
Thank you,
also,
ma'am.
I also have something to say.
Your name, ma'am,
Or
please.
just a question.
The question on this,
It has to be a
question on this
question in terms of
testimony.
Mr.
Yes.
Chadwick's testimony.
Yes,
All right, would you please identify yourself, give your address?
yes, I'm Pam Day, I live at 64 Eastern Avenue in Somerville. So this, I think goes back to Mr. Cole's comment about putting the public rescue at risk. From what I'm understanding from the testimony, this is a highly elevated property. It will be for 2 families. So if there are 3 bedrooms each, so we're talking about a number of people. And presumably, you're not going to have elevator service up. You're going to have quite a steep staircase. Is that correct? To access the property, if it's that elevated?
It's gonna be a normal staircase, no elevator. No
Right,
elevator,
so,
just
so
normal
it will be quite steep then, I
No,
would think.
it's gonna be a
Right,
code
right.
compliant stair.
Would it then be landings? Since
Yes,
it's
he
going to be
said-
so elevated?
Yes, he said that.
Okay.
Mr. Patel said that.
Yeah, so, no, I'm just, you know, I'm new to this is my first meeting as well, but you think about if you had to have if a person who was a sizable person had a heart attack or was injured and needed to be taken out in a stretcher, would the ramps or the stairwell accommodate easily a crew that's going to have to, let's say if it was a 250-pound person who was having to be evacuated or to, you know, be taken down by personnel, EMS personnel, and they had to round corners presumably to get a stretcher. I just kind of want to throw that out because it's because of the elevation.
Well, the stair would have to be built according to the New Jersey State Building Code. So that's not really an issue. They couldn't build a substandard landing or stair. So that issue really is moot. Not to insult you, but
No, not at all.
the issue really isn't germane. So they would have to build it according to the state building code.
I'm just throwing out there the question of risk to public service people, that's all. Just throwing out there something to think about when you're considering approving something like this at that elevation in that property.
It is a task to take somebody off a 3rd-story downstairs well.
Depending on their size, the second floor ain't no change either.
Jimmy Cusick used to always tell me the 3 threes. 3 o'clock in the morning, 3rd floor, 300 pounds.
Right.
John, I put this question to the applicant as well. I mean, you had said that the applicant didn't believe this could be a standard single-family home. It needs to be a 2-family home. Is there an economic component to that, or is there a planning component to that? Because I think it makes a difference.
Well, I think the planning component is a recognition of what can and can realistically be expected on a piece of property. The applicant's response is from a proprietary statement. Planning comment is not that. It recognizes the realities of land development from experience. And that's what my statement is. I believe it's highly likely that this property would be developed for a single-family home.
Anyone else have any questions of Mr. Chadwick's testimony? Marcia?
Thank you. Mr. Chadwick was our last witness, so that wraps up our testimony. We have nothing further.
Anyone from the audience have any comments on the testimonies given? Board, any comments? Go ahead.
I have a question for the applicant. On your design, do you have a generator that has been included that would be able to service both apartments in the event that power is cut?
It wasn't in the plan, but that's a great idea to add to the plan. It wasn't in the original plan though, no.
Yeah, I'm sorry, could you speak up?
That wasn't in the original plan, but that's a great idea to add to the plan.
Anybody else on the board?
Questions or comments?
Comments? Well, let's close the public portion first.
I'll move it.
Move second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Board, what's your pleasure?
I find it kind of troubling. Several of us on this board have been involved in these floods, and we know what goes on in a very close upfront nature. Having said that, this town failed miserably with the possible rezoning of East Cliff Street and allowing that to be redeveloped in the flood zone. They towered out and it's being rebuilt in the flood zone. So I think that, so now we're sitting here looking at this application, something else is going in the floodplain. But has precedent been set by rebuilding the Cliff Street back in the floodplain, and what's the book say? The intent was to get out of there. We've been saying for years, you gotta get out of certain areas. So here we are. This town definitely needs housing, it needs rental housing, it needs two-family houses, I mean, there's no question about that, there's a need for it, and a market for it. But, you know, for us to put somebody down there to be surrounded by water, it's troubling to say the least. I mean, I don't know what you do with that lot, I don't do that, lots of that neighborhood, because in the water so frequently.
It seems to me that the lot is wrongly zoned. I don't see why that lot would possibly be zoned now and today R2, especially fronting or not fronting side by side to an industrial area all around. I would call upon the planning board to rezone it. You know where I'm going with this application, so I am most assuredly against this application. I think it's a bad idea. And even though we have many houses and buildings in the flood zone and susceptible to flooding, water damage, and insurance claims, why add another one? It's not gonna be a building that's gonna be owner occupied, it's gonna be tenant occupied. And I can't vote no fast enough on this application.
Anybody else on the board?
Yeah, yeah, this is a dilemma. Mr. Chadwick honestly said, this is a logical use in an appropriate location. It is an attractive building. But he also said that it's, the property is available and developable. And that's true, but the question then becomes, should we develop it? We do know we have problems with flooding. Rich pointed out the precedents, and yes, the Borough Council, the governing body, missed an opportunity. So maybe we should consider, is this our opportunity to say enough is enough? Is it right to put a property in a flood zone such as it is, even though you meet all the requirements? I think all of us have to ask ourselves, even if this building meets all the requirements, knowing what we know about that area, would any one of us want to rent an apartment there? I don't know. I don't think I would. I'm with Dan. I can't support this.
If the price was right and you had a family of 4 children, you'd go there, but that still doesn't make it a good situation.
It doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it
Stuck.
right for us to put that, to create that situation. I cannot support this.
I think we're stuck with a need for housing. Definitely rental housing, and that would be a nice product, but
They're not there.
we've had to pull so many people out of houses in this town over the years, I just don't want to provide down here.
I think the flood is so fresh in everybody's mind that we in Somerville know what you went through. And I think the more people that we're putting in the flood zone with the potential of being rescued is not a good idea. So I vote no.
Yeah, I'm voting yeah.
Sorry, Dan.
Dan, any more comments?
No, I've said enough.
You know, I think this, if we were to let this go in, this becomes an island unto itself. Our boat launch for Ida was Southside and South Bridge. That's where we put the boats in to go get people from that side of town. It's a beautiful building, I mean, it would look nice. I don't think it's a good idea. I think even elevating it, it just makes it an island. And the height of the building is problematic if you have to rest people out of it. The boat in and take out becomes problematic.
I spent a good portion of September 2nd talking with Ed on the corner of South Bridge and South Side. And I've worked on Southside Avenue now for the last 17 and a half years. I've lived in that neighborhood for the last 60 plus years. Worked down the street, was flooded during Floyd. And at the cemetery, I've been flooded 4 times in the last 17 years. It's a nice building. But one of the things that I noticed are all the houses on South Bridge to the south of it, to the south of it, not one of them is occupied. They're not. It looks like they've already abandoned the ability to rehab those places. And as I've looked and talked with other people, I'm in favor with Dan. That whole area needs to be rezoned industrial. The trucks, if you walk down there and you take a look at the 4 corners from Southside Avenue to 5th Street, the trucks stare them up all the time. The front of my property at the cemetery, truck tracks all the time. We go out there, we rake them out, we refill them, and the trucks, they're gonna be parked right in front of that house. Try to make a right or left on Southside Avenue. I've been a proponent of housing in this town for the last 48 years, and it might meet a certain need for another 2 units. There are 21 houses on the block 55, 7 of which are 2 families or rentals. But I think this is just the wrong spot. So does anybody else have any comments? Someone like to move the application?
I'll move it.
Okay.
Second.
Move for second. Cliff?
We have no conditions on this, would be to deny the application.
Yes, the vote would be to deny.
And that would be basically, the only alternative would be, and I don't know what the applicant would want to do with this, but I don't know where we are on the clock. If the applicant wanted to revisit this, it could possibly do this in terms of revising his plans, but if its plans are as submitted, and that's kind of it's kind of what I've elicited in terms of the questions I've asked, as the board is voting on this as a final vote.
Rich, was your motion to approve or deny?
Deny.
Deny. So a yes vote would be to deny the application.
Yes.
Roll call, please.
Chairman Adair,
Yes.
Mr. Richovitz,
I vote yes for denial.
Ms. Carpentez,
Yes.
Mr. Badimski,
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
and Mr. Alat.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Marcia.
Thank you.
Okay, guys. You have to move to Yes, all is great. How are you doing?
Hopefully you don't go back to zero for the
I'm gonna do that. We're gonna take about 10-minute recess, 5 minutes. Because of how long we're Good job, guys. Yeah,
Because you became one of my least favorite people after you bumped us from number 1 to number 2.
And you see why? You need 5 affirmative votes.
So we need 5 votes.
That would be all your back.
I know.
Just
follow my report. That's what I'm doing.
Stay out of the weeds.
Understood, but yeah, and especially kids and all around and know that it's smell. And really bad things around Right. Yeah.
I don't see that.
They're like, can we get a card? Jobs like, I'll have a
Hi.
Yeah, we just like,
I'll tell you what, it's really well, I'm considering an addition.
Oh, you just want to get yourself. Oh, do you need a variance or you you know, like it's up to your neighbors. Are you that's the road to Frank's, or you like? Yeah, so I'm recused myself. You're recused, so then I just wanted to make sure, but you're recused to Frank's? Okay. I can tell you, you have a better, I don't do a lot of this. But my feeling is like, a lot of the stuff gets added, not because it really needs to strictly go before. But you know what, it doesn't, the neighbor doesn't care, nobody complains. It helps the neighborhood, but it's not, it doesn't meet the, somebody wanted to really go super technical, it wouldn't meet the criteria. That's not, that's, right, I mean, so, yeah, they think, I mean, there's a lot of, and it just improves it, you know, makes it, so, you know, as long as you don't agree, you know. Probably should get an insurance license, only because it's so technical. If you get in this something.
Ready?
Yes, he will.
I know, this place is very much
Pull that straw.
Since COVID,
What happened,
I couldn't help. And he says, all right. We have a lady on our board.
Right, let's take that.
Goes to, newspaper. She's pulled up.
Go back to 1976. No, I was on the Board of Ed in '87. And I knew people like Benny Lovelace. I'm still living with Oh, wait. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Right. Oh, moot court, yes. Yeah, I was doing the judgment. Yeah, so, well, you still in the Right, it looks like art of community up in North Shore. I know people at Rock But, you know, I know, so, yeah, somebody's art. And I know, I did some cases that we all
Okay, guys ready? Yeah. Ready, Steve?
All right.
Okay, well, we're soon.
Next one.
Next application.
Take care now.
Mr. Lieberman. How you doing?
Chairman, thank you very much. Congratulations, see, on your re-election and your reappointment.
Well, thank you very much.
Yes. This is the application of Frank McAlevey for 131 West High Street. We look to in the PR zone, we'd like to have a professional office on the first floor, residence on the second floor. It's currently occupied right now. The second floor is a conforming use having a residence, but we'd like to get approval to have the first floor be a a rental property also. And
Residential.
it's residential rental property, and just hoping that, and I know that what attorney says here, every application is judged on its own merits. But at the last hearing, you talked about how there is some of the board members expressed the need for having more rental housing in Somerville, and perhaps this application can fulfill that need. So the first one I just want to call is Mr. Stiers, our engineer, just to see if he's here, if anybody had any questions for him. We're not proposing any changes, any exterior changes. We're not proposing anything. It's an as-is. All the renovations are done inside, but Mr. Stiers is here in case anybody had any questions of him. If not,
We like to ask Mr. Stiers questions.
Yeah.
Mr. Stiers, you're a busy man.
For the record, you need to be sworn in.
I'm sorry.
You have to swear in for every applicant?
Yes, I do. And Counselor, did you enter your appearance on the record?
I did, but I'll do it again. Steve Lieberman, Somerville, New Jersey, on behalf of the applicant.
Thank you very much. Mr. Stiers, please raise your right hand. You solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, so help you God.
Yes, I do.
Please state your name and spell your last name for the
David
record.
Stiers, S-T-I-R-E-S. I'm a professional engineer in the state of New Jersey, and my license is current.
I believe the board is familiar with your credentials and can stipulate the same.
Yes, we will. He knows what I'm.
Mr. Stiers, you prepared the plans for this application, is that correct?
Yes, and I'll be brief. This is 131 West High Street. It's gone through an array of uses, from a two-family to a dental office. The firehouse bought it for the time being with the anticipation of maybe expanding the firehouse. And currently, it is owned by Mr. McAlevey, and he's proposing to go back to the two-family residential use in the POR zone. POR requires that office use on the first floor and allows for an apartment on the second floor, but not two apartments. So we're here for a D variance. There are no changes to the site whatsoever. So, I'm up here, but I don't know that from an engineering standpoint, there's much to be discussed. There's a parking lot in the back. Existing parking lot that provides for 3 parking spaces, which is what is required for two apartments.
Free parking?
Yeah, it's actually on site. So yes.
I think if more parking would be required if it was professional office, I believe.
I believe so.
Especially if it was medical.
Yeah.
Hey Dave, are those parking spots deep enough? Are they 18 feet? I mean, because it's right in that alleyway there. Not alleyway, it's a street.
Right off of 100th Street.
Yeah.
Right off 100th Street.
I think they're out.
I think they're 9 by 18, yeah.
Okay. And the depth is all I'm worried about, because you want to stick out in that 100th Street.
Right. I mean, Dave, do you want to comment on the stormwater? I had a comment, I'm going to run through this report on engineering items. I just had a comment on stormwater drainage. Do you know how it flows? Is it adversely impacting? Is it to the 100th Street? I just, from looking at the property, the drainage isn't obvious.
I think it flows from north to south. I'm not 100% sure. I didn't even look at it.
We're not proposing any changing the drainage, it's gonna be there no matter what.
And I know that Frank did provide a point-by-point response to your memo.
Right, when I have you up, I was trying to
Yeah.
save a couple of steps there.
Yeah.
I'm saying, so you're not aware of the runoffs adversely impacting anyone?
No.
All right. The site lighting, I had some questions, the ones that maybe Frank can answer those, but it's basically you got residential style lighting out there. I'm sure Frank will answer that.
Yep.
Parking lot landscaping, you don't have any landscaping around the 3 parking spaces. However, they're facing basically the dwelling in question. So my comments were, technically it's supposed to have landscaping or shielding of the headlight glare. But in this case, I don't think anyone's impacted other than the applicants. So I raised that comment. Solid waste management.
Frank had indicated that the trash would be inside and brought out to the,
So it's gonna be stored inside inside and brought out for curbside pickup of recyclables and for solid waste. All right, I think you basically touched on some of the site history here. We had some issues with the construction permit. I mean, I'm sure Frank can touch on it, but the bottom line is, it's renovated. It was gut rehab done.
Yes.
It's set up for 2 units, up and down. And we have the one encroachment on the borough property that we're gonna have to address in some form.
Yeah,
An easement, license agreement, something.
Yes, well, I'll after Mr. Sanders is done, I'll address that.
Okay. Should the board agree and approve what I'm saying?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. We have the planning comments, which I think, I don't know, David, you're gonna comment to them, or Frank's gonna comment on those, or?
Chadwick is gonna be.
Oh, John's gonna do it. Okay, very good. I had some questions on the sidewalk, but I think Frank's gonna address that.
Yes.
The overhead we just did. I had a question about the 2, the AC compressors. Is the setup for, the utility separated on the unit right now, on the building, dwelling?
I think,
Everything is separate except the water.
Okay. I had a question, I guess I'll save it for Frank on the Bilco doors in the basement. Frank, I'll save it for you when you get up.
Yeah.
Dave, I think that's all I have for you.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions of the testimony of Mr. Stiers? Anybody from the audience have any questions of Mr. Stiers?
Yes, I do. Please identify yourself and give your address, sir.
My name is Loreno R. Flemings. I'm at 130 West High Street, right across from the property.
Yes, sir.
The church is right next to the parsonage, which is 132 West High Street. Okay. The questions that I have from our trustees is that in terms of parking, it was indicated that there was 3 parking spaces in the back to the rear.
Yes.
We're talking about a total of how many tenants in the, that would occupy 2
tenants.
2 that would occupy that.
Yes.
So the question I would have is that I went to the borough of Somerville, looked at on computer, the breakdown, and they had it 4 spaces, if I recall correctly. 4 parking spaces. So is that right?
No, what?
No, the RSIS, which is the controlling factor for residential parking, requires 1.5 parking spaces per apartment dwelling.
Okay.
That's the residential site improvement standards.
Okay.
RSI stands for.
Okay.
Reverend Flemings,
Pardon?
aren't you a professional planner?
Yes, I am.
Thought so.
But in Petersburg and Richmond.
Right.
Our rates is different. Our code is different. Okay, thank you. That's what we have.
Thank you. And I think you said that if there's this professional on the first floor, we need more parking than what we have.
Okay.
That's all I have. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, thank you, Mr. Stiers.
Well, Mr. McAleese.
Frank McAlevey, 129 Bartine Street.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the true self you got?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and spell your last name for the record so this gentleman can put it down.
Frank McAlevey, MC, capital A-L-E-A-V-Y.
Thank you very much. Counsel, your witness, sir.
Thank you. Mr. McAleese, you're the owner of this property?
Yes.
And you were asking the board to grant you the variance to allow it for make a 2-family home, is that correct?
That is correct.
And it's been, can you tell me a little bit historical about the building?
Actually, I believe that it was built as a single-family home back in the 1890s. It became a 2-family around 82, I believe it was. It came before this board. Of course, there were different people. Well, maybe you were here, Art.
I'm not saying it.
Okay. Became a 2-family.
I was only a rookie in '82.
It was sold to, I missed a part of that. It was a dentist office. Then it became a two-family. Then it was sold to a group of psychologists, I believe, doctors. And then it was sold to the fire company, the hook and ladder company. And they were planning on putting a new facility there. And that changed, and then the opportunity came up and I purchased it.
And you own some other office space in town, is that right?
That is correct.
And there's vacancies on that right now for older office space, isn't there?
That's correct.
And you're hoping that you can serve a need for moderate income, moderate rental property over here, is that your intent?
Yes.
Now, we also have the report of Mr. Cole, you familiar with it?
Yes.
You have it in front of you?
I do.
And I just want to go through that, starting on page 5. We talk about parking. Any changes proposed to the parking lot?
No changes are proposed to the parking lot.
Any issue with the stormwater drainage?
There never has been, no.
Okay. What about the site lighting? Can you address that?
Yeah, there's a porch light on the front and the rear of the property. The front of the property goes on at dusk and off at dawn. There's a walkway from the back of the house, the parking lot, to the front. And there's one light there that's about 36 inches high, and it's just for the path. It doesn't go and feed the neighbors or anything like that.
Would it be fair to say that the site illumination does not exceed 0.5 foot candles at the
Yes.
property lines?
Yes.
What about landscaping? You know, we talked about the landscaping. There's nothing, you really can't do any landscaping, can you, back at the parking lot?
No, because if I did landscaping in the parking lot when it snows, all the snow would be piled on the landscaping and the landscaping would be ruined. Otherwise, I'd have to take the snow and put it out in the street and the town would holler at me. So if I leave it like it is, I can take the snow and put it on my property and it'll melt.
I think you mentioned before just about the trash will be stored inside. Is that correct?
No, that's not correct. It'll be stored to the rear of the house and it'll be put out on Hunterdon Street, which they pick up on Hunterdon Street. So it won't be out in the front of that, in front of the church or anything like that.
Going now, and you had proposed, as part of the application, you took pictures and submitted them as part of the application, is that correct?
That is correct.
And those were true and accurate pictures of showing what the interior and exterior of the house looks like?
That is correct.
All right. Looking, some other comments over here, I know the plan will hit some of them. Does the site conform to the neighborhood?
Yes.
You know, anything about with the sidewalks?
Sidewalk has been leveled.
Okay. Utilities are separately built except for water, is that correct?
That's correct.
Is it a finished basement?
No.
What's in the basement?
A furnace and 2 hot water heaters.
Okay, Mr. Colston might have had some issue or some question about the Bilco door. Do you want to, anything, what do you know about the Bilco door in the back?
It's a new Bilco door. There's an interior door at the bottom of the basement. There's a fire access door to the side of the house adjacent to the firehouse. And the basement is sprinkled.
And the ceiling height in the basement is about 6.5 feet?
That's correct.
And is the attic finished or unfinished?
It's unfinished.
Is the HVAC for the second floor located in the attic?
That's correct.
And
the heat and the air conditioner are in the attic of the second floor apartment.
And there's no living space in the attic? That's not going to be living space, is it?
No.
So the basement's not finished, Frank, is that what you're?
I said that, yes.
No changes proposed to the outside?
No.
And all the interior renovations were done with permits into code?
That's correct.
Item 8, Frank, the ceiling heights, what are the ceiling heights of the upper?
About 9+ on both floors.
Okay.
I have a question before I forget it.
Yes, ma'am.
No. The building is not occupied now, is that right, Frank?
No, the second floor, I've got a TCO to rent the second floor. They don't want me to, well, I can't rent the first floor until I come before you and get approvals.
And this was approved by the Somerset County Planning Board. They didn't have any objection.
They didn't have any, they said it wasn't in their oversight.
That's all I have for this witness.
Anybody from the board have any questions of Mr. McAlevey? Anybody from the audience have any questions of Mr. McAlevy's testimony?
All right, thank you. I'm going to call Mr. Chadwick.
Good evening, Mr. Chadwick. Good to see you again, sir.
Good to see you.
I think we have to get sworn in again.
You solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the true self you got.
Yes.
Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
Name is John Chadwick, CHADWICK. I'm a licensed professional planner in the state of New Jersey. My license is still valid. I'm still speaking.
I believe as we did with Mr. Stires, we can stipulate to your credentials, sir.
John, I think, before you start, I think I can speak for the board in saying that we look forward to your concise report.
Very.
I've been at the hearing with Sunset and I've heard the testimony of Mr. Stires and the client, or the applicant, and I agree with all of those statements. The issue here is outlined in prior case this evening is site suitability. You have a history of it being compatible with the neighborhood. In fact, it probably was one of the earlier structures in the neighborhood. It has been completely renovated at the applicant's own risk. However, when you look at the street along this section of West High, it's basically 2 and 3 family units all the way up and down. There's a few professional offices remaining. The site provides for adequate parking in terms of your code. And I think it meets the criteria of site suitability and also advances, I believe, the need for housing within the borough, and that was dealt with in a prior application. However, I think those comments are appropriate here. It's a attractive building in and of itself. It conforms to almost all of the standards of the zone. And in terms of mitigating any negative impacts, I don't see there are any. The waste management is interior to the back of the property, which is unusual instead of having cans out along High Street. And in all other respects, it will conform with applicable codes and standards. I don't think there's any reason for me to go on with this application. I think it's one of those applications that's almost common sense.
That's all I have in this witness.
In basketball parlance, it's a slam dunk. Thank you. Anybody from the board have any questions of Mr. Chadwick? Anyone from the audience have any questions on the testimony given by Mr. Chadwick? Someone like to move for, close the public portion?
So moved.
Move, second? All in favor?
Aye.
Does the applicant have a summation?
Yeah, just like you know.
Address the easement issue.
Yeah, the one issue that is a 6-inch issue that there's nothing on the ground. There's from part of the 6 inches of the rear eave overhangs onto the borough property. I've been in touch with with Mr. Solomon, who's the attorney for the borough, and he felt that this was a de minimis violation because it is in the air, not on the ground, so it doesn't really impact on anything. I'll leave it up to you. You know, I only spoke to Mr. Gibbons, you know, about how we handle that, whether you as a license or as an easement, or you know, the borough, I almost thought would have said just forget about it, but we'll leave it to what the board does. But it really is a de minimis violation that really doesn't impact anything else. Then we'll do whatever the board says, but obviously the main thing that we want to do is be able to get even a TCO to rent this out It wasn't mentioned over here, but, in a relative of Mr. McAlevey would like to, he's not homeless, but is living where they're not supposed to, we're living in someone else's house right now, would like to move in there, and we'd like to be able to accomplish that as quickly as possible, so.
I thought you were gonna address the easement, situation at the last borough council meeting.
Yeah, I think they did, a resolution was adopted, I
Okay.
think you provided that.
They provided, they did the resolution that they had to join in this application.
Right,
And
which they-
they did, and they approved of that, and then, whether, you know, we still have those 6 inches hanging out there, what's the best way to handle that? Like I said, Mr. Solomon didn't feel it was necessary, because he felt that it wouldn't impact on anything, but, you know, I'll leave it to how the board wants to handle that with the council.
Well, would be my opinion, I know that, you know, Jeremy had indicated that, you know, he did a resolution that certainly captured the sense of the council. I think for your purposes, as much as for the towns, you should do an easement.
Yep.
And, you know, I say that with a fair amount of experience of my own going through this. You don't want to end up in court with somebody years from now saying that, you know, you didn't have X rights or Y rights.
I understand. If we have to do that, we will. I guess and again, my main concern.
You prepare and record it, you know, and then.
Well, record it, right. My biggest concern, and, you know, it's not every day that you do easements with, the local government, and, you know, what it has to go through, is that whether that will hold up getting a temporary CO so we can move somebody in there, or whether as long as we move diligently and on that issue, whether or not we can have a temporary CO. That's really.
Did you speak with our code officer?
We did talk to the code officer, and basically said he won't agree to anything until we get approval from the board.
Okay.
To change the zoning, you know, to allow it as a student family. So, so if the board allows us, I don't think there'll be an issue, and we don't have any problem with a reasonable time period to, you know, for that TCO, 6 months or whatever it is, to get the easement and everything recorded, but we'd like to have somebody in there, and.
Well, you understand that even if the board were to act tonight, which I expect it will one way or another, there's time for a resolution to be prepared. Now, I don't know what the code official can do with a resolution pending. I mean,
Well, we'll ask about that, but I just didn't, I guess my only concern was, I wanted to see if we can be able to, move forward and have somebody in there before the easement is recorded. That's really what my own, but that didn't seem to, that's my only issue.
I mean, I don't think the board, it doesn't sound like the board has an objection to it, but I think the zoning officer and the code officer are the ones who.
Well, we'll ask.
I mean, go ahead.
Steve,
Steve, are you willing to give a time frame?
I said 6 months.
So-
6 months, yes, get a temporary CO. If we don't get it, we'll have to move out, you know.
Well, I don't know about that, but the issue is that you're saying that you're gonna use the all due diligence. To get this easement, and you'll have the easement within 6 months of the hearing date.
I would think so, yes.
I'm getting a little confused. The easement had nothing to do with what I'm about to say. How quickly can we, assuming we vote affirmatively, how quickly can we get the building occupied? That's what I'm getting at. Now, Frank, you have someone on the second floor or no?
Yes, the second floor is rented, the first floor is gonna be the family rate.
You don't need why I didn't hear that. So the question is, how quickly can we get someone in there, and how can we satisfy the code official that, has he done any inspections? I'm assuming no.
He hasn't, I believe he has inspected, he hasn't, had to approve all everything else, but we've talked to him about getting a temporary CO, and he just said, you can't do anything unless the variance is approved.
It would seem to me, now again, every town, 565 different towns, but it would seem to me that if you had the approval as of record while I'm preparing a resolution, I mean, because the board would have to approve that as a form of content, that while the resolution is pending, that you could get a TCO and, you know, you go in there, it's essentially at your own, at your own
That's all
risk.
good. That's, as long as I can tell them that, and I didn't want, you know, that would pick up
Yeah,
from the
but
board.
Steve, you tell them that, nothing will watch. I think you're gonna need it,
I'll-
probably gonna need correspondence
Well,
from
Mr. Cole, I
Mike or from Cliff. And
Yeah,
I'll
one way or
talk to
another.
Steve.
And Jeremy.
Okay, we'll work on that. We'll work on that. I
Is
just,
I was gonna say that, that's not Jeremy, it's our,
John Maselli.
I just didn't want to do anything behind the board's back.
no, of course not.
I appreciate that.
No, I know, I'm just saying.
Hey, Mike, you should be able to sort that, right?
I can straighten it.
I'll work with that.
One way or another, yeah.
What I'm saying is, Frank, I'll go out there on Friday, just make sure that the sidewalk's level,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
And then we'll work with Jeremy to do exactly what the town requires in terms of, you know, the eve and everything.
So you're comfortable with the 6 months then?
Yeah, we'll get, whatever, go something with the town, within 6 months, whatever. the
Whether
town-
it's a license agreement.
Whatever it is.
Whatever, something in writing to address this, is what
Absolutely.
we're getting at.
You'll provide that to me
Oh.
for approval as a form of contact.
Absolutely.
Which is fine, just so we know what we're doing.
Absolutely.
It's gonna be tough to vote no, isn't it?
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so.
Need 5 affirmative votes there. I have 6.
Need 5. Good, thank you very much, that's all we have.
Anybody from the, close the public portion?
Yeah.
Okay. Someone like to move the application?
I'll move the application.
I'll second.
Move the second, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Chairman Adair,
Yes.
Mr. Rajavitz,
Yes.
Ms. Carbondez,
Yes.
Mr. Vidomski,
Yes.
Mr. Flores,
Yes.
Mr. Alvarez.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm coming here once every 25 years.
That's been a lot.
It's not my bailiwick, it really,
I enjoy our emails.
I know, but I was,
No, Steve, thank you for staying in touch with me too. on-
I do know, I absolutely, I appreciate that. Well, I don't say that often, Cole and I, every now and then talk.
Any other business coming before the board?
That's Ron.
The request for the special meeting for One Somerville Land Holdings, they're requesting to have a special meeting as soon as possible.
Okay, they're not, it hasn't been the billboard, they haven't been the leaders, we anticipate they listen to this information, the email, okay? If it hasn't been deemed complete, the question is, when they're deemed complete, they're not going to lack of a better word. And they, so the question is, if the board want to entertain a special meeting, they want to leave. The orders typically first come, first served, or as dictated by chairman or vice chairman or something president. Obviously, we have 4 or 5 applications in front of us. Okay, we have a couple, we have applications, we have 3 in February, and we have applications in March. So whenever they're deemed complete, what Jasmine is saying is they're looking for a special meeting. Whenever the board, if the board entertains it, whatever the board date is, right? I mean, basically.
First one in March. Too late for February.
Well, let's say they got deemed complete in 2 weeks. So it's, let's say it's the end of January, early February, they're deemed complete, they're gonna say, can we have a special meeting?
I'm good with that.
So,
Like I said, I'll have to recuse myself because
right.
my job is right next door.
Right. So should Jasmine just send an email out with dates and see if anybody's available when it's available in February, if there's a special meeting?
Yes.
Does that make sense? Just throw a date out and say,
Might
make
be a
this.
couple of days anyway.
A couple of dates, but.
Will we do it on a Wednesday evening as we do
Yeah.
now, or it could be
Because
other evenings?
We have
too,
this
of course.
room reserved first and third Wednesday.
Yes, should be the first Wednesday of the month or something.
I'll just say right now, if it's the first Wednesday, I cannot make it. I have a library commission meeting. So.
Well, let's just see when they
Yeah,
get, see what the
I'm
dates
just
are and
saying,
see what everybody can make it.
If
If
it
it
works
doesn't
out,
work, it
and I'm
doesn't
out, I'm
work.
down too.
Right.
Nobody reads books anymore, Roberta.
Oh.
I don't know, I read them every day.
The
You know,
Somerset County
I'm a
Library
dinosaur,
System
but I
is
read them
very
every
good.
day.
When Steve gave us an email, she did out to a couple years ago.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah.
The last thing, Art, this POR zone, we're getting these applicants again. The borough council was supposed to,
That's what I talked with Dennis, and we will resolve that within the next 6 months.
you promise?
Yeah, because I'm about to kick somebody's ass.
There you go. There you go.
I'm really tired. No, I'm really tired. You know, Frank's been gone for over a year. We don't have a replacement for him. We wrote a letter in August, no response. I talked to the mayor. Oh, that's right. Yeah, let me talk to Kevin about that. Tony didn't walk in on a Monday and say, I'm leaving Friday. You know, like, what the hell's going on up there?
Mr. Chairman.
We're still
I
alive.
just thought one guy, I looked at, you know, and Michael.
I think it's time to just enjoy the meeting.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Someone like to move for adjournment?
So moved.
Move, second.
We have
All in favor?
sea guide dogs. We have sea guide dogs in